Jade Lewis from the Sustainable Energy Association. Thanks for joining us. Now your job, your task, is to make sure our homes, our workplaces are more sustainable. How are we getting on? How do we do that?
Absolutely. So we're here to make sure that homes and buildings are fit for the future. That means they're energy efficient, net zero carbon, warm and healthy. Ideally, we'd love for there to be the right policies in place for government to really give us that long-term signal on where we need to go, how we're going to do this, and then the industry can gear up and deliver. However, in practice, that's not quite what we're seeing. It's great that the government have got this on the agenda. It's great that net zero is now probably one of the biggest talked about subjects. 2 years ago, it wasn't quite like that. 2015, 2016, we saw them getting rid of net zero policy in this space. And over the last 2 years, we've been inundated with policy. So ideally, what we need is long-term joined-up policy that allows the industry to get together, that allows them to collaborate and innovate and come up with the right solutions and delivery models to help us deliver net zero by 2050.
But the UK is full of all these leaky houses, Victorian houses, Georgian houses, energy just spewing out there. How are we going to do it? It feels like such a big task.
Absolutely. I mean, in the past, we've tried to simplify this. We've tried to come up with one measure that's going to fix everything. It used to be insulation, more recently, solar thermal, PV. The latest is heat pumps. In actual fact, every building's different, every occupant's different and need different things. So I believe the solution is going to be a mixture of different technologies, different solutions that come together to help us deliver net zero. So it should always be a fabric-first approach. Let's make sure that we're not leaking all those energy out, which means we're going to need insulation measures, draft proofing, energy efficient glazing, a whole host of range of measures to fix the fabric. Then we need to look at the heating system, make sure that we've got low carbon heating sources so that we're decarbonising for the future. And then we need to look at things like health and well-being, adaptation to climate change. So in practice, what we're going to need is a mix of measures suited that particular building, suited for the occupants that give us the right outcomes. And if we start understanding that that's the solution and stop trying to pick one horse, we're going to need a host of measures, we're going to need all these things to come together, then the industry will start to come together and deliver.
And Jade, how does the electrical industry prepare for these future changes?
So we've said already that government policy can change. Businesses sometimes are better off looking at what the trends are in the industry rather than changing for government policy, which can flit and change depending on the government, the Prime Minister in charge. So the trends coming, things like net zero, things like a push for more digitalisation to be used, things like a push for more modern methods of construction to be used, all to increase productivity in the sector, to drive innovation, to address things like an ageing workforce. These are all trends that are going to happen anyway and despite the government, and these are the things that is a huge opportunity for the electrical sector, but it's also a risk if you don't change. But there are things like funding for skills, funding for digital information, new systems, new technologies to be used, particularly for SMEs to gear up and get ready for that agenda. There's a lot of help and support out there. So if they look to the trends, they look to change their business model despite government policy, then they shouldn't go wrong.
So they've got to do the work.
If you want to not be caught out by changes in government policy, then that is a better option. Things like net zero aren't going to go away. We need to address climate change. Anybody that's sat through the hot summer recently, sweating, thinking I must do more to change my home and get air conditioning and deal with this, will realise that climate change is on us. So whatever the government decides to do, the problem's not going to go away. We're going to need to address overheating, need to address flooding, issues with buildings and adaptation to climate change. So the need is there despite the government policy. So if a business gears up around those needs and those trends, then they're going to be fit for the future more than if they try and follow government policy, which may change. And as I said, we don't really know what the energy solution is going to look like for 2050. This is why organisations like the Committee on Climate Change and us are saying you're going to need a whole host of technologies. It might be any mix of these. And so companies need to be flexible and adaptable to those changes. But huge opportunity for the electrical sector.
Okay, Jade, thank you very much.
Thank you.